On a seemingly ordinary evening in Albufeira, Portugal, the peaceful town was shattered by a harrowing crime. Diogo Gonzalez, a promising young man, vanished without a trace, leaving his friends and family in a state of frantic worry. The mystery deepened when parts of his body were discovered scattered across different locations, plunging the community into shock and horror. What made this tragedy even more chilling was the revelation that the perpetrators were two seemingly innocent women with angelic faces. As the investigation unfolded, the dark motives behind their actions emerged, uncovering a twisted tale of deception, greed, and brutality that would captivate and horrify the nation. On July 17, 1999, Diogo Gonzalez was born in the charming resort town of Albufeira, situated in the southern region of Portugal. Diogo was raised in a modest, courteous, and amiable household. His parents owned a tiny souvenir shop. Thus, their financial security was contingent upon the time of year and the number of tourists that visited the town. He excelled academically. He had a lifelong interest in computers and aspired to become a programmer. People described him as an outgoing, kind young man who had many friends. The young man joined a computer academy after graduating from high school, but because the training was expensive, he also accepted a part-time job at a fast food restaurant to support his family and help pay for some of his tuition. Diogo had already made a name for himself as a diligent worker who was dependable in every manner. Early in the year 2017, the Gonzalez family experienced tragedy as Diogo's father was left hovering between life and death for several weeks due to a major stroke. He was under continual medical observation and remained handicapped for a considerable amount of time after his health stabilized. In addition, as the father battled for his life, the Diogo's mother was hit by a car while traveling to the hospital. The incident at the pedestrian crossing happened quite suddenly. The woman was literally thrown into the air when the car suddenly materialized at high speed and drove off without even stopping as she approached the middle of the road. The victim had an open head injury and was flung a dozen meters away, with no hope of surviving due to the severity of the collision. Within minutes, the medics arrived, but they could only pronounce her dead. The driver who caused the deadly collision was taken into custody the next day. Unfortunately, Diogo, who was not yet 18, was left all by himself. Just then, his father's sister, who was his aunt, arrived in Albufeira and offered to take care of her ailing brother and act as the teenager's guardian. Diogo detested the strong woman's regulations, which she imposed, and he moved into a leased flat as soon as he was an adult. A young software specialist interned at one of the biggest spas for tourists in the area in 2018. The management thought highly of his skills and qualities and extended the offer of a permanent position to him. Furthermore, the outgoing, candid, and amiable young man befriended his teammates and immediately became a valuable member of the team. Diogo carried out his responsibilities with diligence and was ever willing to lend a hand. A charming young woman named Maria Malvero worked at this wellness center, and the new IT specialist grew fond of her. He approached her carefully at first, but the coworker mostly turned him down. She nevertheless spoke with him, gladly received presents, but declined any invites to dates or quickly brought up other topics. Unaware that Maria was a small, dark-haired beauty with a unique job as a security service employee, Diogo fell head over heels in love with her strength and femininity. She was charming but unreachable, and the young man found it impossible to turn away from her. This was his first real love, and it turned out to be a faithful one. A year Diogo's senior, the complex Maria was also a native of Albufeira. Her biological father abandoned her when she was very small, so she never met him, and he never showed any concern for her well-being or helped her financially. Maria was raised by her mother and grandmother, but a few years ago, her grandma passed away, and her mother was admitted to a specialist clinic after receiving a severe mental illness diagnosis. From an early age, Maria tried to succeed in life since she realized she could only depend on herself. She played sports competitively in school. She was physically fit and strong. She still managed to have a refined appearance. She started practicing jiu-jitsu in high school and became a blue belt. She had a strong desire to work in law enforcement, but her mother's mental illness prevented her from being accepted into the police academy, which devastated her. Rather, she completed specialized training to become a licensed security guard and was hired by the Spa Center's security division. Because she had to pay for her mother's care and treatment, Maria's paycheck hardly met their needs. Still, the young woman remained optimistic. She was nice and amiable to everyone around her, and she never lost hope for the future. But Diogo, who was enamored with her, mistook her civility for mutual interest. Because he wanted to gain Maria's affection and not be apart from her, he even declined a great job offer in the capital. The young man bought his sweetheart gifts and took her to restaurants and theme parks, all while devoting a third of his earnings to her. They looked like a happy couple very quickly. But throughout all the time they spent together, Maria refused to give him a kiss. Diogo once came over a little video on social media showing Maria caressing and cuddling another girl. It transpired that she had been romantically involved for more than a year with Mariana, a 23-year-old girl. Then Diogo demanded to know why she hadn't been honest with him. She answered that she would rather keep her private life private. Despite this revelation, Diogo never gave up hope that she might one day return his love. Mariana, who had a voracious need for quick money, was born into a lowly household and never had any financial assistance. After completing her nursing education, she was employed as a basic nurse at a nearby hospital. She and Maria had always wanted to live together, but their meager salaries and the necessity to provide for their families prevented them from realizing this goal. In January 2020, Diogo invited Maria to a restaurant once more. He said that the driver who struck his mother dead had just been found guilty and ordered to pay a hefty compensation of 100,000 euros, which had been transferred to Diogo's account that same day. Diogo spoke about the incident coldly and even melancholy, acknowledging that no amount of money could bring back his closest relative. Furthermore, he failed to notice Maria's eyes brighten as she received the news. From that point on, Diogo's friendship with her suddenly reached a new height. Maria started to exhibit interest in him, going so far as to hold his hand gently when they went on walks. Diogo was amazed by his good fortune. He didn't think about why this was occurring or what was causing Maria's conduct to alter so drastically so quickly, even though Diogo's dream was becoming real. He just relished the moment, thinking that Maria really did feel the same way about him. As soon as Maria found out how much money Diogo had won, she informed Mariana, and the two of them began devising a scheme to embezzle these cash. At first, they had to convince Diogo that Maria had finally accepted him as a man and returned his feelings. The ladies then intend to take the money from the Diogo by force or deception, then flee to another nation, so they may utilize the stolen money to start over. An evening of romance devolves into violence. Maria once unexpectedly approached Diogo and proposed that they spend a romantic evening together. She hinted that things might get serious between them and that their relationship might progress to the point where they become a couple. Diogo was genuinely joyful at that moment, and he was not alarmed by the girl's abrupt behavioral changes. He thought she was sincere in her feelings. On Friday, March 20, 2020, in the evening, the eagerly anticipated gathering was scheduled. Diogo himself made dinner, set a table for two, and bought flowers and a tiny present for his sweetheart at his leased apartment. Maria showed up sometime after 8 o'clock at night. As they sat down at the table, she poured Diogo a fresh fruit that she had brought. She insisted that he drink it all to really enjoy the flavor of the cocktail. He did so without thinking, not realizing that the juice was laced with a strong sedative that Mariana had taken from work. Diogo started to feel ill soon. Everything in his head was whirling before his eyes went blurry, and he was tired. When he became aware that something was off, he felt agitated and fumbled for his phone. However, Maria grabbed the phone out of his grasp and declared her intention to give him a sensual dance. Diogo appeared to calm down a little as she put on the music and started to slowly undress. Then, portraying it as a component of the game, she tied him to a chair. Diogo attempted to pull himself free, but he collapsed onto the floor alongside the chair. When he saw that Maria was just observing everything, he started to yell and call for assistance, hoping that the neighbors would hear him. Diogo lost unconscious as Maria continued to push his neck. She then gave Mariana a call. Mariana was waiting for a signal in a nearby parked automobile. Mariana noticed Diogo laying on the floor when she arrived at the residence and inquired as to what had happened. Maria clarified that Diogo had not fallen asleep, but had instead begun to scream and panic due to an inadequate amount of the medication. After realizing he wasn't breathing, the girls untied him, and Mariana used her training to start CPR. Diogo started screaming once again, tried to resist, and fled the flat as soon as he was conscious again. However, Maria used her martial arts techniques to take him out of the picture and put him in a chokehold. Diogo stopped showing signs of life a few minutes later, and his companions gave up trying to resuscitate him. The females were able to gain access to the deceased young man's banking app and unlock his phone by using his fingerprint and Face ID. After moving all of his money into Maria's account, they discussed what to do with the body in order to keep it hidden for as long as possible. Given that Diogo was scheduled to report to work the following day, Maria made the decision to use his phone to message his supervisor, asking for a leave of absence owing to unforeseen family matters. His manager was taken aback by this message because, throughout his employment, the programmer had never requested time off, been absent, or switched shifts. To find out what was going on, the manager attempted to contact the worker. However, Diogo answered none of the calls and left a voicemail saying he wasn't able to talk at the moment. Still debating what to do with Diogo's body, after stealing some cash from the victim, Maria headed to a sizable mall and made purchases there. They appeared relaxed and evidently thought they could avoid responsibility as they behaved carelessly while dining at the food court and making purchases. When they got back to the flat, they made the decision to cut off his thumb so they could unlock his phone and send texts on his behalf if necessary. However, the plan was to dismember the body and hide it in several locations. They purchased big garbage bags and plastic wrap, and then they cut the head and limbs off of the body with knives and a kitchen cleaver. Mariana's understanding of human anatomy came in handy for this gory assignment. After that, they piled all of the parts into 4 bags and hauled them outside of the apartment late at night to put in Diogo's car trunk. Driving the deceased admirer's car and followed by her accomplice in her own, Maria drove them out of town to a cliff, where they left the car close to the edge to give the impression that the young guy had jumped. They then dropped the bag down the edge. They were blind to the fact that the body became lodged in a crevice at the bottom of the cliff rather than sinking. After that, they drove a few kilometers to a forested incline, where they dumped the victim's body parts on the coast and threw out their head and limbs over a little waterfall. The disappearance of Diogo, reported to the police by the Spa Center administration. Initially thought to be a tragic suicide, it soon unfolded into a harrowing tale of betrayal, greed, and brutality. From the early stages, it was discovered that Diogo had recently received a significant amount of money as compensation from a court decision. However, this money was mysteriously transferred to Diogo's friend, Maria. She was interrogated at the airport as she and Mariana were about to leave the country. Maria, caught off guard, confessed, claiming she committed the crime because her colleague had coerced her into intimacy. She insisted she planned and executed the crime alone, asserting her partner's innocence. Despite this, both women were detained and taken to the station for statements. Maria insisted that she accidentally strangled Diogo after he tried to force her into intimacy. However, Diogo's colleagues maintained he would never behave that way, supported by correspondence between the victim and the accused. Additionally, a high concentration of a potent sedative found in the victim's blood suggested he was incapacitated at the time of his death. Maria then claimed she committed the crime for the money and that Mariana was unaware, even trying to perform CPR on the young man. Determining their exact roles in the crime proved challenging. Both pleaded to be placed in the same jail during the investigation, but they were placed in separate detention facilities, denying them any communication. The trial began in July 2020. Despite Maria's persistent claims of sole responsibility, investigators doubted she acted alone, questioning how she could skillfully dismember a body without anatomical knowledge. A 6-month period was allotted to gather all relevant evidence and testimony. During this time, the suspects had no contact with each other. In February 2021, at a hearing, Maria again claimed full responsibility. Mariana confirmed her statements, declaring no involvement in the murder or robbery. However, a month later, Maria changed her testimony, claiming she acted under Mariana's direction and that it was her friend who dismembered the body. Despite this, in April 2021, the court found Maria guilty of premeditated murder, mutilation of a body, robbery, and carjacking, sentencing her to 25 years in prison. Mariana, as an accomplice, received a 4-year sentence but was released on parole in less than a year, as the court believed her attempts to perform CPR indicated she had not intended to take his life. After her release, Mariana gave an interview to a local TV channel, placing all the blame on her incarcerated friend while appearing self-satisfied. A well-known psychologist analyzed the interview, suggesting Mariana was reveling in her impunity and indicating deception. A month after her release, Mariana sued the hospital where she had worked, claiming wrongful termination and demanding compensation. Surprisingly, the court sided with her, ordering the hospital to reinstate her and pay €40,000 in moral compensation. However, Maria later took her own life in prison, leaving behind a note implicating her friend. Following this incident, the case was reopened, and the victim's father filed an appeal. In June 2023, the Supreme Court found Mariana guilty of planning and carrying out the murder, dismembering the body, and carjacking, sentencing her to 25 years in prison without early release. She and her lawyer have attempted to file appeals twice, but both have been rejected. The case of Maria and Mariana serves as a cautionary tale of the dangers of unchecked greed and manipulation. Their actions, driven by selfish desires and callous disregard for human life, resulted in irreversible harm and tragedy. Yet, amidst the darkness, the pursuit of justice prevailed, offering a glimmer of hope in the face of unspeakable evil. As the final verdict was rendered and the perpetrators were brought to justice, the memory of the victim lives on as a reminder of the need for vigilance and accountability in the face of such horrors. While the wounds may never fully heal, the resolution of the case offers a semblance of closure to those left behind, serving as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable tragedy. So what do you think of our video? Let us know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from me again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go. Thanks for watching.